is sometimes your patient is sick and let's say it's got some sort of a meningitis. And you know the patient has meningitis because of the way we present to you clinically. You do a lumbar puncture, and the lumbar puncture has signs that there's an infection going on. You've got white cells, and you look at the glucose concentration, and you look at the white cell count in there, and it's all out of whack, and everything's pointing to meningitis. But you culture it, and it's negative. You know, well, that just doesn't make sense. There's got to be something that's causing the patient to be clinically ill, clinically showing all the signs of meningitis. And the cerebrospinal fluid numbers are all out of whack, all pointing to a meningitis. So there's yet something else you can do. You can take that cerebrospinal fluid and you can analyze it for the DNA of the offending organism. Lots of times you can't get the organism to grow, but if it's been there, it's left traces that it was there. So the PCR is what can help you out in this. If you just get a little bit of the organism's DNA, you can multiply it. You can make more of amplified. It's a pretty name, the scientific name of what you do. You amplify the DNA that you get out of the CSF or whatever fluid it is that you're examining to try to find out what's making your business. And you make lots of them, and then you can analyze by the genome of this DNA that you now have enough of it to analyze what organism matches that genome. So a really cool way of finding information, even if you don't have a whole organism to work with. If you've got its DNA, even a small amount of it, you can identify the organism that you're not. What kinds of organisms do you think this would be particularly helpful in identifying? Anybody? Yes? Know something else? Huh?
A virus?
Why?
Oh, because we just got tested on. I don't know. We had our Clen lab test this morning,
Okay,
and I remember
so good.
titers are for viruses, right?
Viruses are for anything.
Oh,
But she's on the right. Somebody take that little thing that she mistakenly said and use it. Why might viruses be identified by this manner rather than some other manner?
They have small genome, so they can use the isolate piece of it.
Why? Why would you want to do that rather than some other way of identifying? Huh? You cannot culture the virus. Well, you can, many viruses you can culture, but it's problematic. Why? Huh? What were you saying? Why? 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 And so, yep, we're getting close. We're going to talk about this. We're going to glue all these pieces of the puzzle together in a minute. We're getting to play pieces. So, you need a host Y. You need some other cells Y. Okay. Okay. Good. Okay, what were you guys saying? You good? Okay. So, why would PCR be particularly helpful if the thing that's making your patient sick a virus? Well, you can get the CSF out, and you can do all your fancy culturing stuff and all of the kind of medias, and you can put it in an aerobic and anaerobic and give it this a protein or this sugar or this whatever. You try to make it as happy as you can, and it's still not going to grow because a virus is a obligate intracellular parasite. So you can't get it to grow on stuff. Okay? So if you can get its DNA, and the first comment back there was that you can't grow a virus. Well, you can grow a virus, but there are not very many labs that are set up to grow a virus. Because like one of the puzzle pieces back here said, the virus can't grow itself. It has no machinery to make more of itself. It uses the machinery of its host, the cell that it infects. It takes over their machinery to replicate itself, right? Can you do that? Yeah. If you got eggs, or you got tissue culture, all these fancy types of animals, that you can make the virus grow. Okay? So, then what do you have to do? Even if you grow the virus, do you have to do PCR anyway? Not necessarily, because pathologists who are really good at this, and they do it all the time, they can look at the effect the virus has on the infected cells and determine, oh, that's got to be hepatitis C, or that's got to be herpes, or that's got to be this. But costs a lot. Not many people are trained. It's hard to train. You can't just put an ad in the paper and say, I need somebody to come in and, do a viral tissue culture for me. It's a labor-intensive kind of operation. So you can, but it's just not feasible for lots of viral illnesses, and many of our illnesses are viral. Okay, so the reason why, getting back to the original question, PCR is good for this is because if there's a virus in a patient's CSF, all of the bacterial cultures are negative, the patient's still sick. You can take the cerebral spinal fluid and order a PCR on it. And they'll determine whether there's some DNA in that CSF that doesn't belong to the patient. They can multiply it, amplify it, and then identify it. So particularly good for viral infection. And we're going to learn when we get to things like herpes, meningitis. That's usually a problem in people who have an immune response that isn't working well, like a female who is exposed in utero gets born, or it gets exposed as it's being born without a very good immune system. You get signs and symptoms of meningitis. Nothing grows. You treat with acyclovir for a long time. And the way that you retest these little babies for cure is months or weeks down the line. You take another CSF sample and you determine that the baby is done with his therapy when a PCR comes up negative. There's no more viral DNA. So we'll learn more about it, but these are some of the practical reasons why PCR is important, why it's important for you to understand it, and for you to understand why and when it's most useful. Okay, so look at that little video. Understand that little video. Let's see if we can do it together. So serology, that's a title. That doesn't necessarily have to be a virus. Anything that jars the immune system and makes the immune system say, hey, that doesn't belong here. They're going to make antibody against it, and the amount of antibody in the serum is the type. So that is just asking about anything. Can result in a titer against a particular antigen. Serology is the stuff that you can find out by taking serum. And when we're doing serological studies, mostly we're looking for an antibody. If it's a brand new infection that the patient never had before, and you're kind of thinking that this patient must have is acting like they have been exposed to hepatitis C. So you draw their blood and you send it to the lab for electrophoresis for this particular antibody. If it's a first-time exposure and a first-time recent exposure, when you do a serological test, what isotype of antibody are you expecting? New infection, first exposure, and the first exposure is recent.
IgM.
IgM goes up first. If it's weeks later, you can expect that IgG is going to take over. If it's a second exposure, you're going to expect that it's going to have a baseline titer that's high, and because of all your memory stuff, you may get a blip again because of the anamnestic response that we already learned about. Principles of serological testing. How do you determine whether a patient has antibodies in their body against a particular antigen? There's a couple of ways that you can do it. If you take the patient's serum, you're looking for what in the serum? Antibody. Right. Some kind of IgM or IgG, depending on how long it's been and all that stuff we just talked about. But if we take the patient's serum, the thing that we are looking for is antibody against the organism, not the organism. Okay? So this is a indirect kind of way of figuring out what's making your patient sick. The lab provides the antigen. So we make something off the shelf in the lab with the patient's serum, and if we get an agglutination reaction, something that we can see macroscopically, we can say, must have antibodies to this thing. So I know what's making my patient sick. So another way, that's a direct way of identifying what's wrong with your patient, is you can culture them up, and whatever you get to grow, you put that on the slide. The lab in this situation provides the antibodies, or the anti-serum. You mix those two together, and if you have a macroscopic reaction, again, bingo, you have made the diagnosis directly. A direct test, no matter what kind of lab things, you may have already learned this. If you're doing a test and you think it's a direct test, that means we are testing for the presence of the thing that makes indirect test, almost in every situation except we say this is an indirect test, we're not testing for the thing, we're testing for antibodies. That's the sign that the thing has made your patient sick. So indirect test for antibodies, direct test for the organism. And that's going to come in handy as we learn some of the other types of diagnostic tests used in medical lab. Okay. You see these two tests, easy to get straight. One of those things that's easy to get straight. Don't let me trick you. And a agglutination test is a test where antibodies cross-linked with whole cell antigens, like we just talked about on that slide, and it forms visible macroscopic evidence of an interaction between antigens and antibodies. Whole cell antigens. That's what's making the clump. The difference between an agglutination test and a precipitation test is that in precipitation test, the antigen is soluble. It's not a big lump of stuff. It's not a whole organism. It's not a whole antigen. It's something that's soluble. The only way to make it insoluble so that you can see it, so that you see a macroscopic evidence of its presence, is by its interaction with antibodies. Okay? So agglutination test, you have clumps of real stuff, whole cells. With the antibody, it makes this macroscopic thing. Precipitation test, the antigen is soluble. It becomes insoluble and visible macroscopically when it interacts with antibodies. So those are the ways. They're very similar otherwise, soluble, insoluble. That's how you're going to determine one from the other. Okay. You told me about titers. So I know you know about titers. I don't know if you've gone through things like this to figure out how you determine a titer, but if you haven't, here's our great chance to do. Agglutination and precipitation reaction. Whole cells, we're talking about what kind? Whole cells, we're talking about which? Agglutination or precipitation?
Agglutination.
Right, so that's what that one is. Okay, so this is an agglutination test where we are taking a specimen from our lab. We have some whole cells saved in our lab. And we have a patient. And we think our patient is sick because of this bug that we have in our lab. So we take the patient's serum and we mix it with the cells. And all the tubes have pretty much the same amount of cells in it. So this is our control down here. Doesn't have any of the patient's serum in it. So we put our cells in there, and that's just what it looks like when none of the patient's serum is in it. So we mix the patient's serum in the first tube at a dilution of 1 to 20. We get a big lump of cells in the bottom of the tube. Why? What's happened here? What's happened in that first tube? gives you a clump in the bottom of the tube. What's reacting with the antibody? The whole cells that we put in there, just like this. It looked like this at one point, right? We put that many cells in some no serum. Okay? We put that same number of cells in with a 1 to 20 dilution of the patient's serum. And just about all the cells in there agglutinated, fell out in the bottom. So, is this a positive test or a negative test down there? It's positive. It says, this patient has some antibody against that cell. So, but we don't know how much antibody they have. So, let's dilute this patient's serum out by half and try it again. And fell out again, you see a clump in the middle of the tube. Do it by another half. You dilute the patient's serum, you dilute it, and you dilute it, and you want to know at what dilution do you stop seeing any falling out. Okay? When you stop, you can still see a little bit of clumping down there. So the patient's serum is still has enough antibody in it at this dilution to clump the cell. Beyond that, no more clumping happens because it's too dilute. There's not enough antibody in here to dilute out the cells to make it fall out. So the dilution of antibody against blue cells in this patient is 1 to 160. Okay? You understand what's going on? Yes? Yes. Exactly. Precipitation test you don't do in tubes because we don't have anything that's visible. Remember, we put whole cells in there so we can see them. So there's got to be some other kind of way of doing it. And this is how we do it. Precipitation test. Now, we again have some sort of soluble antigen in our lab, and we put it in a, this is like a particular auger, and we put the antigen that we have in the lab in there, and it will leak out. It will diffuse out into the surrounding auger, and we'll put different serums in the well around. It's kind of like this. Patient with serum 1 didn't have any antibody against this antigen because their antibody would have diffused into the auger tube. The antigen would have diffused out of that well, and they would have come together, and what was insoluble and invisible would have been visible. Okay? Now, what about, why does the control have double bands in this situation? This says the double bands indicate that more than one antigen and antibody can react. But if there's no antibody in this patient that can react to this antigen, we can't get a band. Why? By what you've already learned, what this statement right here is starting at double. Same antigen, 2 bands. Why could that happen? Somebody ready to try it, or you want me to give you a clue? Oh, somebody ready to try it. Yes. 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 Remember, we learned that antigen can have multiple epitopes on its surface, and that once the antigen gets processed by the antigen presenting cells, they can present multiple different epitopes. That means multiple different B cells with multiple different antibody receptors on their surface can make antibodies against the same antigen but different epitopes. Same kind of thing can be the explanation for why you can get two bands from one patient against the same antigen. So this is how precipitation reactions work. Remember, what did we say was the characteristic that you must remember about precipitation reactions so that I cannot trick you on a test? Huh? They don't have pulse cells, but what's the magic word you're going to be looking for? Soluble. The antigen is a soluble antigen in precipitation reaction. You won't be able to add cells like we did back here because these are what kind of reactions? Elimination reactions. Okay. Electrophoresis, probably everybody's seen some form of an electrophoresis reaction along the way, either in your work or in your undergraduate career, where you take a substance, you put it in a well, and you subject it to what? Yeah, an electricity, some sort of force that pulls it from your positive end to your negative end to your positive end. And what we learned about antibodies is that most of the antibodies are going to electrophoresis or settle in the gamma globulin brain. And we said that most of that is going to be IgG, but certainly not all of it. And most of it's going to be IgG because, why? What do you know about the concentration of antibodies in the serum? Huh? In the blood of you and me, who arguably, hopefully, are not responding to any infectious process right now. We're walking around with most of our antibodies in our circulation, like 80% of it is IgG. So when we electrophorese it, most of our antibodies is going to be in the gamma range, and most of that's going to be IgG. But not all of our antibodies in the gamma range are IgG. Okay, stuff you already know, stuff you can't forget. Like we said, one thing builds on the next thing builds on the next thing, and we have that thing called the fourth exam that's going to ask you to pull it all out. Pull it all together. Western blot. Who's heard of a Western blot there? Wow! Was that on the test?
Yeah.
Woohoo! Okay, you can teach me about Western blot.
We've heard of it.
We heard of it! Oh no, I'm scared! Don't make me say something about it. Tell me what something you know about Western blot. Confirmatory, not screaming. Woohoo! And mostly we use it as a second test when you hear it come up. It's not the only thing you use Western blot for. But HIV is the test. You don't want to tell anybody you got HIV when you haven't done a second confirmatory test. Why isn't Western blot being used as a first? Why don't we just do it in the first place? Not a false negative, huh? You got that one wrong. Don't ask him.
More than than Eliza?
Yeah, all that. It
All
is
I know.
expensive. And we have that problem. It says it's highly specific and sensitive. And we want you to do a first test that's highly, highly sensitive. Or would we rather do a first test that's highly, highly specific? Why?
So, yeah, if it's negative, you don't have it, you don't have to do anything.
Okay. What happened up here? Oh, man. Anybody else have questions? Everybody agrees?
Yeah, we learned
So that's gotta be right. That's gotta be all. Okay. So, you don't want, so you told me, so for a very first test, you would prefer, if you were choosing as a first test, highly specific or highly sensitive, you would choose which? Sensitive. Okay. And so, when you do your secondary test, you would prefer a test that's highly. And so, in the Western blot, is which of those? Okay. And this is kind of just what it looks like, and you can't get this test to turn around quickly because it takes some time for all of this lining up and the settling out of all the antigens to occur. But once you get to the end of it, you're pretty sure you can call up the people and say, I need you to come in, we gotta talk after you demonstrate. All right, we're getting to some fun. So did you do this one? Complement fixation test yet? No? Okay. Sure. I just need some first. Complement fixation test is a test that you can easily trick yourself into, so I need you to focus. Okay? Complement fixation test. Okay, so we have one patient here whose serum is negative for, when we're looking at patient serum, we're looking for what? Antibody. So, in this complement fixation test, we're trying to determine whether our patient has antibodies against this antigen. Okay? So, when we're doing serologic tests that are testing for a patient's antibody, then the lab provides the antigen. Okay. So we have a patient that's got antibody in their serum, a patient that does not. We have antigen that we mix with the patient's serum. Okay, so we mix them up. We don't know what is what yet because we don't have anything that we can see yet. So both of the tubes we add complement. Okay. The only specimen that is going to bind the complement is the specimen that has the antibody in it. This one doesn't have anything for it to stick to. And we know that the antibody has a place for complement. And which kind of antibody has this place? Which isotype? IgG and IgM. Why are you whispering over there, Jimmy? All right. So,
it's all the same.
It's all the same. Okay, so we're at the same place. We have a positive serum, we have a negative serum. We've added antigen to both, And we've added complement to both, so we still can't see anything. The tubes look the same to us so far. Now, we add pink red blood cells to both tubes, and they have these, what they call, lysins on the surface. What does a lysins look like? What do these lysins look like? They look like antibodies. What they are. Okay? So, they are antibodies that are, if they're doing handstands on the red cell, on the pink red cell, the antibodies must be against red blood cells. Okay, so we add these pink red blood cells to each tube. Okay. Now we're going to have something to look at. We're going to be able to determine which one of these tubes, which one of these patients actually had antibodies in their serum. This is the tricky part. Focus, don't let me trick you, because I can trick you on this. I get folks every time. Even though I say, don't let me get you. This is an important test for you to recognize, okay? So, don't let me get you. Okay? 100% on complement fixation test. Okay. So, we add these guys to the tube. The cool thing about this test is the complement is what lyses the pink red blood cells. The first tube that the patient has antibodies, all the complement is used up. It's already stuck to the patient's antibody. Okay? So when you add pink red blood cells that's got antibodies standing up on the surface, there's no complement left. So the red cells are not going to be lying. This one had no antibodies. The complement had nothing to do, so it's just hanging out in the tube. You mix these red blood cells with lysins standing up on the surface, and they go, oh look, IgM, IgG are just red blood cells. We can bind to those. And when they do, what happens? When complement binds to antibodies on the surface, what happens? How? MAC. How do you make a MAC? Yes. All right. So this is a MAC complex, and we have hemolysis. Why do you get tricked? You get tricked because you think a positive test is a test where you can see something. You have hemolysis in this tube. You have no hemolysis in this tube. It looks like this must be the positive test. No. The positive test means the patient's antibody was present and nothing happened at the end. You see why it's tricky? You see why you're not going to let me trick you on this? If there's hemolysis in a complement fixation test, it was a negative test. If nothing happened, it was a positive test because that patient's serum had antibodies. It put all the complement to work, so there was no complement left over here to lyse the pink red blood cells. Okay? We got it? Okay. You promise? You're not going to let me trick you. Deal? Okay. Oh, yeah. It's a really good illustration. Make sure you look at that, and it'll help me not be able to trick you. Okay, we kind of talked about fluorescent antibodies and immunofluorescent testing when we talked about the difficulty in staining what cells. Spirochetes. Remember, syphilis organisms is really hard to get dye inside them, so you have to do this fancy test. We did a little illustration of how that works yesterday. This is the one that we sort of did yesterday. But what happens is if we have this was slide. We took some antigen from a patient. And remember we said this is another time when it's showing up, that a direct test means we're testing the patient for the organism. If we're doing an indirect test, we're testing the patient's serum for antibody against the organism. So we take a swab from the patient that we think might be syphilis, let's just say. Okay. And in our lab, we have some antibody against syphilis. But for this particular kind of test, the antibody is going to be tagged with a fluorescent dye. Okay. So we get the unknown, and we kind of think we know what it is. We add the lab antibody with a fluorescent dye on it. If the unknown is the same as the antigen that our antibody is specific for, it's going to bind to it. So when you rinse the slide off, it's not going to fall off. You're going to look at it under the fluorescent microscope, and voila. You know exactly what the organism was. It will no longer be unknown. This time, your lab has a known antigen. Let's say syphilis. And you put that on the slide, and you mix your patient's serum with your known antigen. And so, if the patient has the antibody, it's going to stand up on the known bug that you put on the slide. Well, that's not going to do any good if you put it under fluorescent microscope. What you do is you put antibodies against human antibodies in, okay? But that one you're going to tag with a fluorescent dye. If the patient has antibodies to the antigen, it won't be rinsed off. Okay? So your antibody against human antibodies with a fluorescent dye on it is going to be your bingo. You look under the microscope and it's fluorescent. If the patient had no antibody in their serum, it won't stick to your known antigen. You put antibody against antibody in there, but there's no antibody for it to stick to. You're going to rinse, it's going to be gone. You're going to look under the microscope and it's going to be dark. Okay? So this is an indirect test. Looking for the patient's antibody. If it sticks our antibody against human antibody, it's going to light it up. This one, you provide the antigen. You provide the antigen from the patient's swab or whatever, it's the cerebrospinal fluid or a urine sample or whatever. And you put antibodies with a fluorescent dye on it with it. If it sticks, you look under there after it rinses, and it